Good morning. Larry has already got a chat question up that's asking if there's a phone number to dial into. Larry, you should be able to hear us now. Can you indicate whether you can or not? Awesome.
You got it.
We're going to give everybody just a couple more minutes. Those that are already logged in and ready to listen, if you want to go ahead and just say, hey, I'm here, that'd be awesome. Let me see if we've got some folks that I recognize. Sean Adams is here from Benefits Assist, one of our customers. Good to see you, Sean. Susan, good morning, Susan, from Ladies of Charity. It's good to see you, Susan, another one of our customers. Oh, we've got Holly Jones on from the Sevierville Chamber. It's good to see you, Holly. And Larry, I don't know that we've met, Larry. Are you with a particular company? So Holly is asking if everyone is muted, and so if you are not a presenter, then you are not able to talk. You'll have to type in the chat box. So we're just talking off air about other webinars that we're going to be doing down the road, and so if anybody is thinking that they would like to be a guest speaker, then we would be happy to look into that as a topic that we might be able to do together. And so just kind of keep that in mind. Again, my goal for those that were with me last week, my goal is to do a new webinar every Friday morning at 10 o'clock. And I'm hoping that it's going to be something useful for your business. And, we're talking about technology right now, but we're going to branch out a little bit. And I'll tell you more about what we're going to do next week. So Larry says that he's one of our retail customers, but he's with the Sageview Advisory Group, does corporate 401k plans and that kind of thing. So it's good to have you on, Larry. All right, well, it's 10:01. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so we're going to go ahead and get this webinar started. So a couple of things. My name is Thomas Hill. I'm the owner and operator of Computer Depot Business Solutions. And actually, I also own Zippy Prints, which is a print company here in the Seymour, Tennessee area. I have been a business owner for almost 30 years. So I have quite a bit of experience, and we've been through a lot of ups and downs over that time. With me, I have Wes Bruce. He is our top technician, security expert at Computer Depot Business Solutions, and Wes has been with us. Wes, how long have you been with us? I forget now.
I think it's about 8 years now.
Okay, Wes is a very long time employee and staff member, family member, has been with us for nearly 8 years, and he's going to be helping us with some of the technology that we're going to be talking about here today. So just a couple of housekeeping things. We're going to be kind of going through this presentation of the 4 tools that we use to stay connected. And the reason that we have a little bit of experience in this is because at some point we had 4 retail stores spread out across Knox and Sevier County. And so we had, probably about 12 technicians that were in different locations. And so we had to kind of learn quite a while ago how to stay connected. Because it's very important to me that we have a culture where my staff kind of feel like that we're in this together kind of thing, and so sometimes that was a little bit difficult when we had, technicians that were at smaller retail stores where, there wasn't as much interaction and that kind of thing. And so we were able to find some tools and some ways to kind of do business that kind of made everybody felt like they were part of the team. And so that's what we're going to kind of talk about today is now that we're kind of all forced to be separate, what are some of the tools that we use on a regular basis and have been using for quite some time that make us all feel connected and allow us to get a lot of work done. So I love questions. And so I want you, as soon as you see any questions that pop up in your mind, I want you to go ahead and type those into the chat box. And Wes or myself will be monitoring that chat box for questions, and we'll pull those out of there and get those answered as best as we can. So again, so excited to have everyone here today. And so we're just going to go ahead and jump into this. I need to start
Share your screen.
my I should have had this ready to go ahead of time. Sorry guys, I was kind of chit-chatting and lost track of time there before I realized. And so we are going to share my screen. All right, does everybody see that screen, hopefully?
Yes.
All right, so we're talking about the 4 tools to stay connected. And the problem is, so this is a tech guy's nightmare, is when the technology doesn't work the way that it's supposed to. Because I think I've shared the wrong screen now.
This is what I've got on mine, but it's not full screen.
Yeah. Okay. So I was trying to make this full screen, but it won't make full screen on how I've got this set up currently. So
It's better than you had it before.
okay, so we're just gonna have to go with this one, and just kind of bear with us. Like I said, technology guy's worst nightmare. Anyway, so we are going to talk about fear first of all, because most of us are business owners in some way, and I have to admit to you that this is a scary time, and it's a scary time for me, and I can only imagine it's a scary time for a lot of folks. And so, I'm going to start off with this little story, and that is one of the villains in Batman is the Scarecrow. He dresses up in a Halloween costume, but underneath is a mad chemist who has manufactured a toxin that can induce intense, uncontrollable fear in a person, causing them to vividly imagine their worst fear is upon them. When used against an enemy, it instantly immobilizes them. When deployed over an entire city, it quickly dissolves humanity into chaotic, deranged, and terrified mob that turns people against each other, with each person imagining the other to be their biggest nightmare. The Scarecrow is just an average man without superpowers and abilities. However, his only power is the power that you give him. With the coronavirus environment, people are frozen in fear, eyes locked on the news, unable to think clearly. Do not give this fear power over to you. Do not make decisions out of fear. Now more than ever, it's critical to act. But first, you must escape the clutches of fear. So I kind of started off that way because what I'm noticing is there's a lot of people that are just not doing anything. So, we're kind of told to work from home, but even when we're at home, we're kind of glued to the TV set looking at the train wreck that's going on. And so what I'm going to try and do is encourage, not only in this webinar, but in future webinars, is encourage everyone to just move forward. Let's continue doing what it is that we need to do. We just need to find new ways to do it. And so with that, that's what we're going to talk about in this particular webinar, which is the 4 things that we use to stay connected. So the very first one is group chat. So the great thing about group chat is that it allows your team to stay connected. There's a couple different popular chat platforms out there. We've got Slack, and Teams is kind of a newer one that's part of your Office 365. The great thing about these particular products is the team communications can all be in one place. Integrates with a lot of different programs. In fact, I just learned that today, actually just minutes before, that my Google Calendar can be integrated with Slack so that it will automatically put my status on there that I'm in a meeting and that kind of thing. So, again, there's a lot of built-in, things that go on there. It also has built-in file sharing, which is really nice. So, if you have a document that you're working on and you need to send it out to either a group of people or a single person, you can just share it right into their Slack message, and that helps out tremendously. All other things that are really nice is that the content is completely searchable in one area. So, there's a lot of times when I know somebody has told me something in my team, but I can't remember, who told me what, and so I forget, and you can log in and do a complete search there. So a couple things that people are asking right off the bat is, how secure is it? Slack is a very secure platform. In fact, now, of course, you can purchase different platforms inside Slack. So they have a free version, which doesn't cost anything at all. And it's a great way to get started. However, it's not HIPAA compliant. They do have HIPAA compliant versions, which, if it's HIPAA compliant, then it's going to work well for banking industry and that kind of thing as well. And so, those versions, they have, souped up security, to address those kind of things. What I'd actually like to do very quickly is just show you my Slack screen. So this is my Slack screen, because, a lot of people are probably have not ever seen a Slack screen and not really sure what it's all about. And so I kind of want to show you some of the things that that we use. And so as you can see in here, we have several different channels. Okay. And so, we have things like contact updates. We have things like escalation, general discussion, MSP, my life, new leads. And then you have the individual people that are part of Slack, which are these folks down here. So, these are all folks that are, as part of our team. And so what I can do is, and I don't know if you all caught this a little bit ago, but Wes is at a location where apparently the internet has gone out. However, he just Slacked me and said he's back now, although I don't see his video. Are you? Anyhow, but so, we can have different conversations with specific people, or you can kind of come up here to the general discussion. Like this is to my entire group of people. And so we have, like I said before, different channels set up so that, general discussion is just, it's usually discussion about what's going on in our business, so articles get shared. This particular one actually is talking about Zoom bombings and that kind of thing. Other people talking about SentinelOne and essential services and so forth. So this is just a way to kind of share stories that's going on in our industry. But other things that we've set up is we have the My Life channel. This channel is just kind of a way for people to kind of share what's going on in their life. This particular technician is working from home and his dog has just destroyed something. We have another staff member that's raising chickens, and so she's sharing a picture of the chickens and so forth. So this is just kind of a way for us to stay connected on more of a personal level, which I think is very important. Other channels that we have on here, I won't click on it, but we've got channels on here for new lead, which when we have a technician that has come across a customer that might need our services, they put that information in there so that our marketing department can follow up with that person and make sure that we get the things that we need to know about. Other channels that are great is, and this one integrates with another third-party software company that does they do surveys basically of our technicians. So any of you that know that we are that has done business with us before, that every time we get done doing a ticket, we send out a survey saying, hey, how did our technician do? Were you satisfied with the service? And so this links to CrewWho, and it basically gives me a live update of all of the customers that are either unhappy or luckily we don't have very many unhappy customers. The vast majority of the time, they're all happy customers, and of course our staff gets rewarded for happy customers, and so that's kind of what goes on there. So this is just kind of a quick rundown. Another thing that's I think kind of important is you're able to set statuses. So like one of the very difficult things to know what's going on is what is your staff doing? And so I can very quickly look at this. T Hill is my status, and you can see there's a calendar there, which means that I'm in a meeting. Wes Bruce has the same icon on his because he's in a meeting as well. Although, Wes, are you coming back to webinar here, because your section's going to be coming up here in a minute. Anyway, and then other people, the ones that have the thumbs up, those are people that are ready to take customer calls. Brandon here, he has got a mouse in front of his that's telling us that he's in a remote session right now, and so he's working with a customer and is not able to take any phone calls and that kind of thing. So so that's the great thing about Slack, for us at least, is that we're able to still stay connected, we're able to be efficient, and I'm able to know what's kind of going on with everybody. And so that's the great thing. So Sean asks, do you know if Teams has the ability for hashtags or channels? So I do not know the answer to that, Sean, because we do not use Teams. I'm not an expert in it. I do know that we have some customers that use Teams, and Wes might be able to let us in on that. But my understanding is Wes may be having a hard time getting back to the broadcast, so I may have lost my co-host. I do not know, and so what I'll do is I'll have to get back to you on that question, Sean. So anyway, so that's just kind of a quick introductory of Slack and how we use it and how it might be beneficial for your team. And so I strongly recommend that you may look into that. So let's see here. Let's go back to all right. So the next one on the list is file sharing. So file sharing is dangerous, guys. I'm just going to be perfectly honest with you. So there's a lot of file sharing software folks out there. You've got your Dropbox, your OneDrive, your Google Drive, and then SharePoint is kind of an enterprise level one, also by Microsoft. There's a lot of advantages and disadvantages to each of those. And again, this was the one that Wes was supposed to do for me, so I'm a little bit unprepared for this, unfortunately. But this is technology, so I will just move on with the notes that he provided me. So Dropbox is a lot like Google Drive and OneDrive. They're easy to use. They generally are either free or very low cost. OneDrive has 30 days worth of revisions in it, which means that if you've got a file that you've shared with somebody and you need to go back to other revisions, then you can do that. Dropbox has 180 days worth of revisions. And so that's something that's a little bit different. Excuse me. Google Drive doesn't really mention whether they have any revisions in it or not, and it's not a service that we use, and so I don't have a lot of experience on that, so I can't really answer any specific questions to that. Most of these file sharing services have an ability to sync with your computer, and so that's kind of a good way to offer a backup of sorts. But I do want to encourage you not to use these file sharing services as a backup. That is a very poor idea because all of these file sharing services can be ransom attacked. And so that's why you don't want to use these as your primary backup. So keep that in mind if at all possible. Also, Larry is asking, if we will email them back with any questions, with any answers that we have. So if I'm not able to answer a question in this webinar, then I will have a technician follow up and send an appropriate answer. So go ahead and just keep putting any questions into the chat box. I really appreciate that. Let's see here. So, like I said, a lot of us are probably used to these type of services, and we probably all have used them in some way or another. The one that I kind of want to point out a little bit, though, is SharePoint. SharePoint is probably not one that a lot of people use unless you're in an enterprise type environment. So SharePoint is a lot like OneDrive. Again, it's owned by Microsoft, and so it's part of their service directory. However, SharePoint is for an enterprise type environment, and the reason that you would use SharePoint is for greater security of who is allowed to access files and who is not, that kind of thing. And so we want to be able to, and we have several customers that use SharePoint, and again, I personally do not, but I have several technicians that are what I would call experts in SharePoint. And so if you need to use a cloud-based solution where you would typically have a server sitting in a closet kind of thing, and you don't want to have that server sitting in the closet, but you want it all cloud-based, then you would set up a SharePoint account, which SharePoint is going to be part of the Office 365 suite of software. And so that's why you would use it. The advantage, again, for SharePoint, it's going to be HIPAA compliant. It's great for doing project type work, like where you have different sets of employees that are doing different types of things. Hello, Wes.
Hi, sorry.
So I've kind of done the rundown for the most part on our file sharing.
Okay.
Were you able to hear any of that, or did?
No, I have been offline for a little while, so I did not.
Okay. Hopefully our internet connection is going to stay a little more stable. It's all up to the gods at Comcast, I guess, right?
Indeed, yeah.
So I was just talking about SharePoint. I haven't talked a lot about it. I'd like to kind of hand it back over to you because you're more of an expert in SharePoint than I am. So let me ask you this. Why would somebody want to use SharePoint as opposed to, because really Dropbox, OneDrive, and Google Drive, they're all pretty much the same. They pretty much offer the same thing. So why would you want to use SharePoint and not one of those?
Right. So with the others, their main purpose is just to store files and to share files. So, you can get the same with all of them. Google is nice if you're already in a Google environment, you're using Gmail, G Suite, things like that. It would work well. OneDrive, if you're already in Office 365, it fits well. SharePoint is a little bit different because it has all those features. But beyond that, you have extremely granular level ability to change permissions, to audit logs, to do any kind of teamwork kind of ability. So if you had one particular group in your organization that was working on a project, you could actually publish a website through SharePoint that they could all interact in that particular published website, and that would be where your information is shared there. It's good for HIPAA because of the security that is involved with it. So it just, the downside, I guess, would be that with the massive amount of options it gives you, it also comes with complexities. So in my opinion, if you're looking to go into SharePoint and think that's going to be a good fit for your organization, I would actually recommend taking a class because it really is that in depth, and you can get confused pretty quick with it. If it's not something you actually think you would utilize, I wouldn't go toward it because it is complicated. But if you think you can utilize some of those options, and especially if HIPAA is involved or something else where a lot of privacy is involved, it's probably a good bet. Outside of that, OneDrive is probably your best bet there because you don't get as confused with it.
All right. Also, I'm going to go back to, so Larry asked a question a little bit ago while you were offline, and that is, how secure is Slack? So, and I had already answered that and basically said they do have versions that are HIPAA secure. But then the follow-up question that Sean had was, do you know if Teams has the ability to do hashtags or channels? Do we have any customers that you've worked with Teams that you can answer that?
I don't have as much experience with Teams, but I do know a little bit what they do. They do have their own version of things like channels, so they have that functionality. Theirs is actually more integrated with Microsoft, obviously, so you have a lot of sharing with the Office files and things like that. So you have the same kind of thing. The downside I hear all the time, and this is kind of a Microsoft consistency, where it gets complicated. It get the setup for it is a lot of in-depth, and with Slack, like we've had it, you just kind of you put a person on there and put them in the channels they want to be in, and then you're set. But with Teams, you get all the Microsoft backlog of setup and configuration and things like that. So if that's not a big deal to you, though, it'll give you the same type of functionality and the channels, the hashtags, things like that.
Okay, so I've got another really good follow-up question from Betsy. She's part of a nonprofit that uses Google Drive along with other services for accounting, payroll, and web-based communications. I had mentioned earlier that Dropbox, OneDrive, and Google Drive should not be your backup solution. And so she wants to know, what do we do for customers that are completely cloud-based that, what do we do for the backup? So can you kind of talk about that?
Sure. So you can't necessarily back up files that are already in the cloud. So with all these features, they all have sync abilities. So they have the files they can sync on your computer as well as in the cloud. And what we found is a good way to do it is have maybe even just one computer that has access to the files and have it sync with those, so it's downloaded on that computer. And then you can have a good backup software running on that computer, which is actually what I do on my computer at the office. So everything that is in the cloud, if something happens, even if you lose connection to the cloud or something like that, you have your local copy of it. But then you also get 30 days of, with the backup we use, you get 30 days of revisions, so that if you need an entire day redone, you can do that. There are revision type stuff with OneDrive and Google Drive, but step one in getting that is contacting Microsoft support or contacting Google support. And if you've ever had to do either of those things, it's not a very fun process. And then trying to get them to do an entire day of recovery, like if it's ransomware or something like that, is going to be a pretty big deal. I'm pretty sure Google actually doesn't even offer the one day of all the files kind of restore. So it's just, it's better than nothing, but I wouldn't put my business banked on that being a backup. I would actually have a software that's intended to do a backup on top of that.
All right. Great question, and I appreciate the follow-up.
Absolutely.
So we're going to move on to our next one, which is an appropriate email domain. I bring this up because I have several, we service about 600 small business clients in the East Tennessee area. Some of those businesses have managed service contracts with us. Some of them just call us when they have a problem of some kind, and we fix it, and they kind of go on about their life. What I have found over the years is that there's a lot of folks that are just not using appropriate email, and so I bring this up as more of a public service announcement kind of thing, and that is, when you're running a business or an organization, it's important to have an email address that is branded specifically for that company or organization. In our situation, our email domain is computerdepot.online.com. So every one of our staff members, whether it's T Hill or W Bruce, has an email address that's under our domain. Now, of course, you can do this through a lot of different places. GoDaddy offers, free email, or I guess mostly free, or maybe inexpensive is probably the more accurate word. And there's a lot of other providers that do that. However, we have found that a lot of folks have security issues with their email address through these lower cost vendors. Because of that, we recommend that you host your email address, whether it's for your organization or for your business, through a service such as either G Suite or Office 365. Yes, these services are a little bit more expensive, but the reason that you want to do this is again, because of the security aspect. Wes, can you kind of talk about just things that we've seen in the past because customers have gotten services through other providers that just weren't secure?
Sure. So one of the biggest things is just a really good spam filter. You're not going to have employees clicking on phishing links if the email doesn't actually get to them. So with G Suite, with Office 365, they both have fantastic filters. So you're right off the bat protected from a lot of the stuff that's out there. Rarely does anything come by my inbox that has anything like that in it. So that's one thing. If you're having issues and you need to kind of look back and see where something's going wrong, you can actually do audit logs with Office 365 and G Suite. Trying to find an audit log with GoDaddy is a losing battle. You're just kind of stuck on your own. Trying to get support in general with GoDaddy or some of those lower cost ones, you're just kind of on your own there. So those are big. Just in general, they just have a support team that can back you up and help you with any of the issues that you have there. So that's probably the biggest impact on it.
So another reason that you would want to have a unified environment like this is, first of all, a lot of these things that we talk about work better. So for example, when you're talking about using Slack or you're talking about using Google Drive or OneDrive, when you have a unified address underneath each of those, you can share resources much easier as far as the size of the storage area. Calendars is a big thing, being able to share calendars, and Wes has his calendar shared with mine so that I can see what he's doing, so that if I've got a customer that I need to schedule for him to talk with, I can just put that directly onto his calendar and vice versa. So these are reasons that you want to have kind of a unified email domain, is primarily for the image, secondarily because of the security, and then just because you also have the ability to do so much more when you're all underneath the same domain and an umbrella. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add about email domains, Wes?
Yeah, just the biggest thing that we've seen with companies that have the lower cost ones, with the amount, sometimes the hosts themselves actually are getting hacked, or the server that it's on gets hacked by, there's another company that's using that shared server that's doing a bunch of different email domains. And so when that server gets hacked, other companies start seeing that there's being spam sent out because whatever person or company or group that hacked it is using it just to send out spam to thousands of other people. And so they blacklist it. And once your server gets blacklisted, that means that when you try to send email that's good email to people, it's actually not going to get there, because good spam filters like G Suite and Office 365 are going to see that that's been blacklisted, and they're not going to let it go through. So then your company's got an issue where you can't even contact your other companies that you work with or customers, things like that, because of a shared hosting that you had nothing to do with this other company that got hacked, and now it's interfering with what you're trying to do. So that's a big problem too that we've seen.
Okay, great information. I'm going to go back and answer a question that Betsy had about backup software and what do we recommend. So there are a lot of backup software folks out there. What I'm going to recommend is that unless you're an expert in IT, that you don't just willy-nilly set up a backup. There are lots of backup softwares that are advertised, and most of those are kind of a lower cost type solution. Maybe you've heard on talk radio and so forth. I'm not saying that there's anything necessarily wrong with it, but if you know exactly how to set those up, then by all means, go ahead and do it. However, what we have found is that most people don't have a clue as to how to set those kind of softwares up. And also the other thing that I want to recommend is, or point out, is that backup software is not a set it and forget it kind of thing. So what we see that fails a lot is that people will purchase backup software from a company and get it installed and maybe even have it installed properly. But then a couple months down the road, something will go wrong. And maybe even that backup company will send out an email saying, hey, looks like there's something wrong. But then that email either gets lost or nobody pays attention to it. There's no follow-up. And then sooner or later, 6 months down the road, you have a problem. And then when you go back to the backup software, it's like, oh, wow, the backup software hasn't backed up in 4 months. And unfortunately, we see that a lot. I'm going to say probably 60% of the new customers that we onboard to our services, when we go through and kind of run an audit of their old backup system, 60% of the time, their old backup system isn't working the way that they thought that it was, and it's not a good backup. And so with that said, Betsy's particular question is, what do we recommend? And that is our managed backup solution that we resell. And I'm not looking to resell something on this webinar, but what I'm saying is that your backup is your lifeline. Okay, it is probably one of the most important things in your business or your organization. If you were to lose all of your data or a majority of your data, where would your business or organization be? And so do you really want to trust that to a low-cost company, or do you want someone that knows what they're doing and is managing it in real time, which is what we do. We manage everything that we do in real time, so that if there is a problem, we get signals on our workstations that lets us know that, hey, here's a flag, there's something going on with this backup, and our guys create a ticket and follow up with it and get it resolved. So that's what I recommend, is that you have some sort of a managed backup system. So great question. Larry also points out, when we were talking about email, is that you want to have a unified email for audit purposes, and this is absolutely true. In fact, I'm going to talk about HIPAA just a little bit, and that is, if you have a company that needs to be HIPAA compliant, you need to make sure that whatever company you're working with can sign a business associates agreement. And not every email vendor out there will sign a business associates agreement. Now, G Suite will and Office 365 will, but GoDaddy will not. Comcast will not. And so kind of keep that in mind for down the road. All right. So my last thing is centralized VoIP. So, a lot of people are using VoIP these days, but I kind of feel like there's like the old style VoIP and the new style VoIP. But would you agree, Wes?
Yeah, this definitely, it started out kind of with a bad name, with a lot of issues going on, which is why you were hesitant a long while back when I first started working to even go to VoIP. But it's definitely got some people out there that have done a lot better job with it.
And so you may be thinking to yourself, what is VoIP and why was I so hesitant to go to it? So can you kind of explain what VoIP is and why I was hesitant?
Sure. So VoIP is voice over IP, or voice over the internet. And what you're looking at there is just, instead of having a copper line, landline for your phone cable coming in, it just connects to your internet. So you have the speeds and stuff that are, whatever your internet has is going to be at that. So if you want to get an internet speed that can actually handle it, so if you're running on something close to dial-up, it might not work out for you, but most broadband that companies have now are perfect for it. And it just gives you the voice, plus it gives you tons of features on top of that. That with Citricom that we use here is just got a lot of texting functions and text voicemail functions and things like that. But it's just a new way of doing phones and texting and communication in general.
So what I like about VoIP, and Wes is right, we started using VoIP about 5 years ago, probably. And we tried a lot of different VoIP solution providers. We tried RingCentral. We tried Vonage, and I think we even tried Skype for a while. And what I found is that we just didn't have the control that I wanted. Now, of course, it's possible, that's been a while, and these companies have possibly upgraded since then. The one that we have actually been using for the past 4+ years is Citricom. They're a company based out of Texas, and what I like about them is, first of all, they do an all-in-one solution where for a flat monthly fee, they provide everything: the voice, the hardware, the tech support, everything. And so that's really awesome. Now, it just so happens that we are a vendor for them. So, that's kind of a nice thing as well, is that you have a local IT company that has a lot of experience with this particular company. But what's really nice about it is, and this is a picture of our actual office phones that's on the screen right there. What's really nice about it is I like the real time. So I can look at my phone at any time and see who's on the phone, who's talking and that kind of thing. And that's really helpful when you're talking about being disconnected, because if I've got a customer that calls in saying, "Hey, I need some help with blah, blah, blah," I can kind of quickly look at the phone and see that, Larry or Brandon's not on the phone right this minute. And I can transfer that customer to them and not transfer them to somebody that's already working with someone. Like, I can tell on my phone right now that Zach, one of our technicians at our Middlebrook store, is working with somebody right this minute. And so it kind of gives you real time. Other things that I like about it is they've got a pretty decent app, that you can use your cell phone as your desk phone. Excuse me. So what's nice about that is when you're out in the field, you can answer your desk phone, as if you're at the desk. Other things that I like about the service is, of course, one of the things I really like, since I'm hardly at my desk, of course, I'm at my desk a lot more now that we've been told to stay at our desks, but most of the time I'm not at my desk. I'm out visiting customers and that kind of thing. And so if somebody calls in and I missed their call, the system is set up to email them, email that voicemail directly to me. And then I can, log on with my app and call that customer back as if I'm sitting in my office, and the customer doesn't know any difference. So those are all really nice things about kind of what I would call present day, voice over IP. And when it's done right, it works really well. And Citricom, I believe, is one of the few companies that really does it well. And so that's why we kind of mentioned them.
Hey, Thomas, if you don't mind, I just wanted to add one thing to
Sure.
that. In regards to Citricom, one of the biggest things with vendors that you're working with is there's always going to be something that there's a hiccup or a problem or something here. With Citricom, man, every time we call them, somebody answers the phone immediately. It's not a automated press 3, 4, or 5. They answer the phone and they fix it usually within just a few minutes. So having that support to go to, even for the technicians working on it, is nice, so you can get your issue resolved quick and get back to work.
Yeah, so since they're out of Texas, there have been several times I've called them and I'm on the phone with the tech in just a minute. I mean, they have one of the quickest responses. Very rarely are you ever on hold for long periods of time when you're needing help. So that is a good point with Citricom. So I wanted to point out something real quick. Sean brings up a really good point in that he was talking about email addresses getting blacklisted. Of course, we were talking about blacklisted because we've had actual situations where customers' email addresses have gotten spoofed and basically stolen their email address, and that's why they were able to get blacklisted. But Sean pointed out that he sends out a lot of email and maybe 300 or more emails a month, and because of that, he was having some blacklisting problems. And now he's using a service called Mailgun, which we are using. Who are we using, Wes? Because
we're using Mailgun.
Okay, we're using Mailgun as well. Okay, I thought that looked familiar. I just couldn't remember. Yeah. So yeah, Mailgun is a great service if you're having to send out a lot of email and you don't want your email address to get blacklisted. It's a great way to kind of control your email list and not have those kind of problems. And it's a pretty inexpensive service too, compared to a lot of the services that are out there. So I do appreciate you bringing that up, Sean. That's a really great point. So that's kind of what I've got as far as the 4 tools that we use on a regular basis to stay connected when we have to stay apart. And so I kind of really appreciate everybody logging in. I kind of want to know though, what are you struggling with right now as business owners or as employees of small businesses and that kind of thing? If you wouldn't mind, just kind of, we're going to leave the chat box open for just a little bit. And I've got one more thing I kind of want to end with, but what is it that you're struggling with? And what help do you need right now? What can we help with to, to bring you webinars that'll be useful to you in the future? And so again, if you can kind of put those things in the chat box, that would be awesome. Just to kind of summarize.
Real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt you there. I just wanted real quick, Sean had actually another question on here. I just wanted to address real fast, talking about download speeds at home and what was necessary. I would say the minimum would be 20 to 25 down. Beyond that, you're probably going to start seeing some issues. It kind of depends on what you have to do, what kind of work you have to do. But for the most general purposes, I would say you need at least 20 down. I think I have around 50 or so. It works pretty well, but yeah, minimum 20.
I actually looked at my download speed yesterday at my house, and I'm on a pretty old plan apparently because I've only got about 25 down. But it works okay. I mean, I do see a little bit of lag here and there, so I may reach out to I believe we're with Charter at our house. I may reach out to them to ask them to kind of bump that up a little bit, but that is a good question. So just to kind of summarize, our number 1 tool was team messaging. Look into Slack or Microsoft Teams. File sharing. A lot of you are probably already using Google Drive and OneDrive and that kind of thing. But if you're needing more control, talk to us about SharePoint, and we may be able to help you with that. The third thing is having a good email domain. So make sure that all of your employees and staff are using that domain. Do not allow your employees or staff to use their personal email addresses. That becomes a security problem, actually. And so make sure and encourage them to use their work email address. And then the last thing is having a really good VoIP system, a voice over IP phone system, something that is flexible and that will work well. So those are all great things. And I think we had a good discussion. I'm going to leave you, and I see that we've got some folks that are coming up with some ideas for us to talk about in the future, and I appreciate that. But I'm going to leave you with one last thought. And so I have on my wall, which is what I'm staring at now, a quote by Dale Carnegie, and that quote has been up there for several years now, and it fits so perfect into what we kind of started out the seminar with. Which is, Dale says, inaction breeds doubt and fear. Action breeds confidence and courage. If you want to conquer fear, do not sit home and think about it. Go out and get busy. So I just kind of want to leave you with that. Again, we're all in this together. I have no doubt that when we get past this, we will grow and our economy will get back on track. It's going to take some time. But the way that that's going to happen is not by sitting at your house with sitting on your hands. It's going to be getting work done. And so even though we're working from home, guys and gals, let's continue to get work done because that's how we're going to move forward. Anyway, I really appreciate everyone. Look forward to next week's webinar. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit, and I'm going to talk about the 4 things that you can do right now to survive this crisis. And we're going to talk about marketing fundamentals that are worth looking at. I'm part of a marketing group of sorts, kind of a team of folks all across the United States that I get together with on a weekly basis, and we talk about marketing and moving our businesses forward. And there are 4 things that we talk about on a regular basis that we always talk about strengthening. And right now, while maybe it's a little bit slow in your business, or maybe you don't have a lot going on, I think these are great things that you can be working on to position your business so that it's ready to take off when the economy starts moving again. So we will talk about those next week, next Friday at 10 a.m. Folks, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again later.